Hello and welcome to your Desire Mastermind. Yes, I was just starting to get going talking about my own journey the past few weeks. And part of that is how everything that happens to us, we give it meaning. And then we can also, our brain goes and looks for anything else that matches that energy, that emotion, that history, and can bring it up. And then we can really flip into living our stories, recreating our stories, and all of that. So when we really think about manifesting and the amazing power of it, which I've experienced over and over again in my life, at the same time, things will come up. And I used to get really upset because I used to feel like, well, that's derailing me, or why is this showing up just when, whatever your stories are, just when everything gets good, something ruins it, or waiting for the other shoe to drop, whatever programs you have running for those kind of things, until I learned that all of it is part of it. And that spirit is always working in my favor. So I have to trust. We are the ones who say that's good and that's bad. This is good that this is happening and this is bad. Yet if you were able to look at the whole tapestry, all the lessons our soul came here to learn, all the relationships we've contracted with other people, and all of these pieces, it would make a lot more sense. I also, especially over the years since I've been really studying human design, one of the things that human design believes, that I believe, and it helped me really break this down. Our soul has an ongoing soul purpose. Our soul has things that it came here to learn. If you remember, that source is like the sun, and each of us is one ray of the sun. So we're both source, and we are from source, one expression, so that source may know itself in all its forms. So because of that, our soul has a soul lesson that it's learning throughout time and space, in whatever way we understand that. And in this lifetime, in this body, our body was born under a certain planetary sky. Our soul chose this body, and all the people it chose, the body we would come through, the people that would create us, who would be in our life and our world, whose blood would run in our veins, all of those things, and what body we would have. So you are here fulfilling your soul purpose, while at the same time, you're doing it through this life purpose, which includes this body. So I really bumped up against the physical recently, and it really threw me, and I had all kinds of feelings about it. And at the same time, then I have to go back and say, well, what do I believe? Which includes spirit is always in my favor, and everything counts and everything matters. And I know, and a spiritual advisor reminded me just a few weeks ago, that anything energetically that we do not address will eventually work its way into our body in order to get our attention. And overall, I spent the first good portion of my life living in my upper chakras and not really wanting to have a body, be in body. I didn't have peace with my body because it's part of a lot of things that were going on when I was growing up with my mother, with my family, and a lot of my programming and conditioning and lessons. And over time, I've made peace with it, but it takes a lot for me to actually go on a physical healing journey. And it takes my energy from a lot of other things. So I can go long periods of time just ignoring it. But your body absorbs so much. And the body of healers and empaths, when you understand where things are happening in your body, it really can give you even a greater understanding. So I just had this surgery, which overall was a hernia repair, a hernia that I've been aware of for a little over a year. And then I was putting off when would be a good time. And I don't know when I need to get it fixed. And then it finally got to a point where I have to set aside the time and get it fixed. But the bigger thing about it as I got into it is the same place they opened me up for this surgery. I've already had 2 other times. So, and they're 20 years apart. And when I look at all of them, they all have great meaning that is all related. So this is all taking place in my solar plexus, my digestive system, all the way up to my throat. So my center of power, which was always weak, and all the issues that I'd play out there and everybody's stuff that I would carry, and then not being able to digest things, and then all the way up into my throat, not speaking my truth. And so 40 years ago, I was pretty young and I had to have my gallbladder removed. So that was the first one. So they made a slit and they went in, they removed my gallbladder. And so just on its own, people have their gallbladder removed. But once I started on this spiritual journey and I understood all this even more, there is a lot more to this when you look at what happened moving forward and how these things progressed in my life, because it was around a lot of this being repressed and not being in my power and giving my power away and absorbing other people's stuff, not speaking my truth and my message. So 20 years later, I had this experience where I choked on a vitamin, which is how I found out about it, ended up in the emergency room, and I had a really big surgery with a really big scar. And I was in the hospital 8 days. I don't remember a lot of it. And they did a lot of work on all of that. And it brought to life that I was having all these issues in that area. And then the scar healed and I went on and the issue went away. And I even tell people I had an undiagnosed issue for 7 years. And once I dealt with it, and then I had that surgery, it went away and it never came back. And so that was something you hear about a lot when people are working energetically and with all these principles. And so for a long time, it wasn't showing up again, but things come back around and energetic loops come back around. So the interesting thing, I believe in all this, sometimes they can do a hernia repair laparoscopically, but with everything that was going on, once they did this, I thought it was going to be a simple hernia repair and I was ready for it. But it was that whole thing that had been opened up before and everything that went with that. And I had tears all the way up and they had to go in and reopen that entire scar plus some. And then they told me you're going to be in the hospital. You could be there 1 to 2 weeks and all of this. So I was starting to prepare for that. So I'm aware of the energetic, but I'm also aware, on one hand, what I can look at is, oh my gosh, I just came out of a time since summer 2021. So a year and a half of flying high, manifesting like never before, at the top of my game, more than you can dream and imagine. And as part of that, I started setting what the next things were that I'm going to do, be, and have. At the same time, anything then that is not cleared, healed, and resolved, that next layer of that can come up to be healed. And where you find, the miracle and the magic or the good in everything that happens. In having this surgery, I agreed to have the surgery and I was waiting for my grandson to be born. So I put the surgery off because I didn't want to be in the hospital in case they needed me when he was going to be born. And then right after he was going to be born, I asked them if I could have the surgery in January. And I went all the way to the pre-op in the hospital, and they found an underlying issue that I wasn't even aware of that would become a big issue. So on multiple levels, it was telling me, you're not looking at this, you're not paying attention, you don't anyway take the kind of care of your health at that level. You'd rather live up here. And here we are again, because where I'm going next, my body has to be able to hold the energy and the things I'm creating and where I'm going to go. And so I knew, one, I was like, oh, great. So thanks. I get everything I want. And then I have to deal with this body stuff. You know, I threw my hissy fit and now I got to go through this and all those things of like, why kick you when you're at the top and all of that. Then I had to really look at, again, spirit is always working in my favor. What's really going on here, and uncovering all the layers of it. So one, they told me, we can't give you the surgery. You have to go on this 30-day journey and get this under control. You've got to go to your doctor, which I don't even go to doctors much because as far as I know, I don't feel bad. I'm not on any medicine, but there was an underlying issue that could get really big. And so that set me on this. You can't even have the surgery until the end of February. So then I had to get my mindset around that. And I'm really good at mindset on other things, but I don't like people controlling my food. I don't like being tied down to a bunch of medicine. I have all these things, and I was having to surrender and surrender. And so then I had to go on this 30-day journey that was hitting all my buttons around all of this. And I just had to keep surrendering, like, there's a reason this is happening. So before I could even have the surgery, and in 30 days, I turned it around so much. Once I said, I need to use the tools I use everywhere else in my life. I don't like this. I was even to a few of my friends really whining and kicking up about it. And then it was like, well, there has to be a reason and I have to trust it. And so once I uncovered all those pieces, I had to do this 30-day, and I turned a lot of it around to the point they were like, wow, you really made a difference. Now you can have the surgery. Then I had to go have the surgery, which has been a huge surgery, and it'll take about 1 to 2 months to fully recover. So all those things I was dealing with. So then I start looking at my year even, and it's like, well, that means I have to take all this time off. I've got to do all this. So my mind is wanting to kick up about all of it. And again, it's just that surrender and surrender and surrender. So on one hand, I believe that we're not stuck with anything and nothing is an absolute. And on the other hand, you have to deal what is real once it gets into the physical, because it's harder to clear. So then I was like, well, everything else I do experiment. So I'm going to do an experiment. So for one, they put me on these 2 medicines that I had to take multiple times a day. I don't like it. And one of my friends said, oh yeah, they put me on that medicine 10 years ago. You'll just take it the rest of your life. And I was like, what? I don't want that. So I said, okay, do I believe this is something I have right now or something I am? So I kept saying I was not honoring any diagnosis or allowing any diagnoses. This is something showing up. I don't know why, but I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to do what I have to do, and I'm going to turn it into an experiment. And in 30 days, and now we're 45 days in, I've done a lot of turnaround to the point that some of the medication now I had to stop because it would counteract what's happening naturally. So it's like, there adds another layer. Am I supposed to be learning right now how to use these principles on the physical? Because, you know, I love to go into the field and impress energy on energy and create things. But is this another level for me to look at what happens when things are in your physical body? So again, I'm monitoring, I'm taking it very seriously, but I'm watching the difference in somebody says, here's your diagnosis, here's your medicine, take it you'll take it the rest of your life. That's just what people do. Or can I see what I can do? Because it's a choice. Some people want to take the medicine and they want to just have that, and it will take a lot for me to change some of these things. Again, spirit's like holding me to the mat. You want to go be this, you want to do this, you want to have that, you want to have this travel schedule and this life schedule. Your physical body as a vessel literally cannot do it. with these things going on, plus finding an underlying physical situation that then I'm turning around. So it can be both. I will use all the medicine that's available to me always, but I'm going to apply what I know in manifesting to that and watch what happens. So it's an interesting journey because, you can get really comfortable. I'm really good at manifesting all these things, and it gets easier and easier and better. And you're going to be stretch and grow. And so this is really stretching and growing me and staying out of anger and staying out of resistance and all of that, and just seeing what's called for. And then I get impatient because it's slow. I can do a few things, and then I've got to just sit and I've got to do nothing. But when I looked at my schedule had kind of made space for that. And, I love to travel, and instead I'm home, and I don't like not feeling good. And I always wondered, like, how do people live with chronic pain or things like that? Because I've just been very fortunate not to have those things. I've always believed it is what happens in our physical, but a lot of that starts in the energetic. So here I am again, looking at the patterns and the pieces, and I had to go back and revisit 40 years ago and 20 years ago. Now, here's the other thing. If you follow these kind of things, I'd been really made aware in the last year, and I've been working with my Saturn return, if y'all are aware of that. So 3 times in your life, you have a Saturn return. And one of them hits with the first one when you're in your 30s. And then they say when your next one comes, which mine is starting in a few months, which I find fascinating. No, next month, in a few weeks, which I find fascinating because, again, I said, what's happening to me right now and what was going on when I was turning 30? Because I had a really challenging time, but I didn't know I was in a Saturn return back then. Now I'm aware of it. And my husband actually went through his last year, and my daughter and I, we were calculating everybody's, and I could see it play out, his Saturn return. And now I'm aware mine is starting in a few weeks. So here's that part of it. How interesting. During my Saturn return, my biggest things that I fight are these things that I'm aware of. And now here they come for me to resolve again. Then the next one won't happen till I'm 88. So I have a while until that. But so I'm aware I'm coming up on that. If you start looking at the big picture, all the pieces start making sense, and they're all working together. And so we can't just say, once the great things start coming in, we expect that nothing bad will come in, but we have to recognize that those things are working in our favor, and we have to work with them both by their real, but we know we don't take things so real that we can't change them. So it's an interesting experiment for me, and at this time, and really working with that. And I trust that all of this had to be resolved for what I'm asking for and what's coming in the future, and that I can't totally get away with not taking care of the vessel that I want to hold all this energy and do all of this. So this can show up in different ways. In the past for me and for other people, it has shown up as financial money issues or physical health issues, relationship issues. It can show up in any kind of way. And I really believe I'm still in the process of embracing it all, and even then being able to be grateful for it, because there are days right now when it's like, ugh, but once I'm able to, I can believe that it's all working together, and that it will all come together. So you don't want that to derail you. I've seen a lot of people then that will say things like, oh, that must be spirit saying, no, it's not my time, or I'm not supported. I used to make up stories, spirit's not supporting me, but it's not. It's all part of it. And our physical body is part of all of this. I had also been aware of lessons coming up over the past year and a half, even more. And this is something that healers and energy people are talking about across time right now, like on the planet, as energy is always evolving with our planet. So you may have heard things like this, or you're getting these messages too, but because I resist it, it was really coming to me that the power in manifesting and healing moving forward is going to be even more where you're very grounded into the earth and the physical. So it makes sense to me that the more I was really doing that, this came up and I have to deal with it and work with it. So be thinking about that, as you get on these rolls, you're riding this flow, then you don't want to look at, well, that's a failure. Now this thing happens. And even we can get into, well, how did I create this? Because I would think, well, I would never have created this. And you don't want to start spinning stories, whether it's relationship, whether it's money, whether it's health, healing, any of that, and look at what opportunities are here. The other thing I start considering, because it's something I don't talk about in my work, I'm telling you, I don't like it. I don't like to pay attention to it. I don't want to, but I have to look at, as I go through with this on the other side, what might be there for me to teach other people. I always share my experiences, but what things are there that I'll be called to think about or talk about with other people and look at moving forward. And I'm in this pivotal place that now that I've had the surgery and as I'm getting better, I get to make choices of how I want to move forward. But I'm aware it'll have to be different than it was. And I want to do it in a way that is life enhancing, not life depleting, where I'm not resentful, angry, begrudging, and all of those things. So it's a whole head journey. And it really is these principles that we are taught. They work in every arena for everything. And the mindset principles that took me from broke to working through all my money stuff to really that financial freedom and that financial relaxation, as that one coach that I had recently liked to call it, which I like. It's a whole different mindset to have ongoing financial relaxation and financial freedom. That same mindset gets applied to these other things. And you can't really say, well, I'm going to live it in every area, but I don't want to live it in this because it's the hardest one. If they break that wheel of life into those pie pieces, it's that pie, and you look at all the different areas of your life, there's always going to be one area that you really struggle with, or you ignore, or you don't want to really look at. And then you can find, like I'm finding, these patterns in your health where you can go, there are no coincidences. This is so fascinating. And what can I learn, and what opportunities are here for me, and what am I going to do with it? So that has been my journey. And I'm 2 weeks in healing. I was in the hospital a week, and then I came home, and now I've got at least another couple weeks of really taking it easy, and a couple until the end of April before they said you can go back to what's normal. But this is really, I'm going to come out the other side of this having to figure out. And that's another thing. I grew up in a way that things happen to you, and then you just have to deal with it, but you're a victim and it's not fair. And why is it happening to you? And all these different things. And so then I had to look at, what can I be grateful for in it? And these things, I have choice. I have choice to just live the way I was. I have choice to do new things. I have choice to continue to explore this whole thing with my solar plexus. In the past years, since 40 years ago, or since 20 years ago, when the last time I had the big surgery, the throat part of it went away. So see, that was cleared. And even in all this, that didn't come back, because I'm out there now. Back then I wasn't. I'm talking, I'm writing, I'm living my message but this time it hit fully in the solar plexus. Even the physical thing that happened, my solar plexus started like showing a physical problem. So it was very clear, like right there where you say is your solar plexus. So that's the part I have to look at. And power had been coming up, the next version of it. So again, we up level too, like what's the next version? This part was cleared. This hasn't come back. But why did the power piece come back, and what is behind that? So we're always journeying, we're always looking. Like I said, you can get to this place of like, I am riding so high, nothing can touch me. Things are so great. And then when you get something this big that comes in, it felt to me at first like, what in the world? Why is this coming in? So just really working with what shows up and being aware of that.